On the journey home from Hong Kong after my first meeting with Sifu and his family, I had to do a lot of soul searching. I had to question myself for the way I thought about Kung Fu. Originally I joined the Kung Fu for the movement, the learning the art. I'm not going to say the fighting end of things because I didn't particularly like the fighting, but I had something to do with it. So I had to soul search big time. I asked myself, what is Kung Fu? Qigong told me you have to do it through the heart. You have to learn it through the heart. I had to study that saying, you have to go through the heart. And the only thing that I can think of that is in the heart is love. So how do you find love in Kung Fu? That was a big question I had to ask myself. What does he mean by finding the heart? Which is, in fact, one of Kung Fu's analogies. It also means stop fighting. You have to ask yourself, what does it mean by stop fighting? It also means quality. As I was told, when Michelangelo was painting in the Sistine Chapel, he was using fu, quality. When a carpenter makes a beautiful cabinet, he uses fu. A woman rearing a child uses fu. So I had to study all of this fu. I had to ask myself then, what were they doing inside the temples? Why were spiritual and holy monks learning about fighting? Learning about movement? What were they finding in their hearts? These monks died for what they believed in. During the revolution in China, they were put up against the wall and shot. They were tortured. In fact, our own great-great-grandmaster, Lang Kwai, was tortured for months before he escaped. Some soldiers caught him and brought him down to Hong Kong. Why did they not shoot one another as they were asked to do by their captors at the time? Why? What was in their hearts that they loved so much that they wouldn't betray what they have learned? That took me heart searching after heart searching. Why? What were they doing? Qigong taught me so much, but left it for me to find out for myself, to study and find out for myself as to why this Kung Fu is necessary. It brought me back then to the Liberties, who fought so hard during the revolution against the British in Ireland. Not only in the Liberties, but all over the country. But just down the road, 5 minutes walk from where I lived, they shot and hung people in Canadian jail who refused to betray their comrades. And the Black and Tans and the auxiliaries, who were a group of basic animals who were sent over to Ireland basically to kill everybody. They killed hundreds of men, women and children, and yet these people refused to betray their comrades. So I felt a great affiliation to these monks. In fact, if you think about it, it actually brought a tear to my eye a good few times. So, we searched and searched. And it also makes me think the way people the perception that people have of Kung Fu nowadays. In the films and the fighting, and all the ego and the arrogance and the aggression. These monks We're not any of those things. And yet, they claim Kung Fu. Even today, you go onto YouTube, you see so-called Shaolin monks fighting. They were never allowed to fight before. They were never allowed to demonstrate. They weren't even allowed to speak about it or show anything the way they do. This is not Kung Fu. The heart is not about all of those things. When I came back to Ireland on the first time and I started trying to teach some of my students, they turned their back on me. And they turned their back on the real Kung Fu. And that's fine. That's what they want to do, that's fine. But they'll never know Kung Fu. Fu is about quality. It's about movement and the quality of movement. It's about shape. All of which comes from the heart. And that what comes from the heart is chi, through the heart, into the Dan, and then into the body. But this has to be purified. And this is what they were doing in the temples. They were purifying their own chi, their own thinking, their own body, their own energy system, to create a bond with the earth and the universe. How could that be violent? How can that be aggressive? You have to understand that we have three minds. We have body mind, mental mind, and heart mind. These people who use Kung Fu for their own means and their own aggression are just using the body and the mind. They're not using the heart. And if that be so, then they're not doing Kung Fu. Now, I sound very harsh maybe in those things, and I do not mean to destroy anybody's feelings the way they want to view Fu or Kung Fu. But that's up to them. That's their business. It's my business here to carry out what my grandmaster asked me to carry out. And that says to teach people about the dragon and the Fu. And to bring it to people. I'll elaborate on that some on the next video. Please understand that Kung Fu has nothing to do with aggression. It has everything to do with its original monks. It has everything to do with the original spirituality of it. And about nature and the universe that we are attached to. We're not just attached to, we are it, and it is us. To treat it any other way is denying all that. So it takes a bit of thinking about it, and that took a lot of study, a lot of heart searching, a lot of looking at yourself and having the courage to look at yourself, to look at myself and those things. I had to reject my past life because there was a lot of aggression there. Because when I was delivering coal, I was fighting when I was carrying the coal going up the stairs. I was being jeered and punched and kicked, and I had to fight my way down. And that's why I didn't like hurting people afterwards. But that does have an effect on you. And to rid yourself of all of those angers and all of those aggressions takes time. But it also takes... You also have to understand, you have to go to your heart for that. You're not going to do it through the body or the mind. And that's what I believe Kung Fu is.